views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
Welcome to Entitled to Overcome, exploring solutions for life today. A presentation of Take 12 Recovery Radio. And now, here are your co-hosts, Dave Fleming and the Monty Man.
Rock it out. Rock it out with Dave Fleming.
And the Monty Man.
That's right, here on Entitled to Overcome. Welcome aboard, everyone. Welcome to the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show, presentation of Entitled to Overcome Solutions for Life. When, Dave? Today. That's right, today. And the topic this week is dealing with difficult people. Dave and I have already had an interesting morning because we live on a planet where there's other people. And when there's other people, sometimes you have difficulties.
Many difficulties.
Yes, indeedy. So I want to give a quick shout out, really quick, to Mike, James, Raymond, Dean, Dewey, Samuel, Mullane, Greg, C.A., Dave, Peter, Deborah, Jennifer, and Marcus for all responding to our question: what do you do to deal with difficult people? And people had some interesting answers, and we may be talking about that today. But before we do any of that, we have this, I think.
Well, it's time for Dave and Monty's Icebreaker!
Yay! That's right.
Who's going to clean this up?
I don't know. That's awful messy. So we like to do a little icebreaker to start the show with. Everybody can kind of stretch their ears. I got...
That was my ears stretching.
That was your ears stretching. I got three real interesting criminal things to do an icebreaker with here. The first one is the donut hole inside your soul. Donuts and arrests appear to be linked in the life of a North Carolina man, Bradley H. I can't give these last names out and just feel good about myself. So we'll just use their last initial. The 27-year-old who was arrested after he won the donut eating contest at the Elizabeth City Police Department's National Night Out Against Crime event. So that's good, right? Well, police in Elizabeth City say that Bradley, who became champ by eating 8 glazed donuts in under 2 minutes, then broke into a Dunkin' Donut shop right afterwards and has been charged with offenses including felony breaking and entering and felony safecracking. So he goes to this police event. He wins the contest for eating donuts, and I guess it must have triggered him, Dave.
His blood sugar must have got a blast, and he took over.
Oh, my gosh. I need to break into a Dunkin' Donuts. I'll bet.
Was it next door?
I don't know.
That would have been even a better story.
That would have been even better. Here's the second one. Talk about driving your car to work. Police say a man answering to a stolen car charge drove the stolen car to court.
Wow. Is that making him restitution?
Yeah. Authorities say 25-year-old Jonathan R. was at Hartford Superior Court on Wednesday to appear before a judge on a charge of first-degree larceny and tampering with a motor vehicle from February. Parking authority agents scanning license plate outside the courthouse found a car that had been reported stolen. Police kept an eye on the car, and they arrested Jonathan when he got inside and tried to drive away from the court after court. So he was charged with stealing a car, the very car that he drove to court, and then for some reason he was released, probably to reappear, or I don't know why, and then got into the stolen car and tried to drive away, and, well...
It almost sounds like maybe it was a second car that he stole.
It may have been. So he drove to work. And the third one, escape rooms. You know what an escape room is, right?
So like a panic room?
No, it's a game. So you sign up with a bunch of people and you go into a room and there's clues in there. And then you follow the clues to find out where the locks are to open up boxes and items to give you another clue, all leading to a way to get out of the room.
Did they come up with a movie called The Cube that's similar to that?
Yeah. There's a Cube 1, 2, and 3, actually, which they get a little old after a while because
same scenario.
Same scenario. Well, two women who escaped from jail in Alberta, Canada, were apparently so confident in their abilities that they headed to an escape room less than 24 hours later. Another escape proved impossible, however, when the police officers surprised them within minutes. The scene unfolded Tuesday at Side Quest Adventures in Edmonton, which challenges visitors to escape locked rooms using a series of clues in a short period of time. So they go in there to play this game after they escape from prison. And when they come out, bam, surprise, they're back in jail. That has got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
That's like when you when they send you a letter saying that you won the sweepstakes, or they call you on the phone,
Right.
And they say, "Come to collect your prize,"
Right.
You know, and they're there waiting for you because there's a warrant for your arrest.
Right. Isn't that great?
Here's your prize.
I just love it. I love it. So there's our icebreaker. There you go.
And there you have it.
La di da di da di da. Yes, what fun we have here at Take 12 Recovery Radio. Particularly on dealing with solutions for life. When, Dave? Today. So, Dave.
Yes, Monty. You can call me Vid too.
Yes. What does that stand for, Dave?
David. That's like the third time in the last 2 days that somebody asked me that question.
David. Very important Dave. V-I-D.
I actually fell for it too the first time.
Did you?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that. I'm like, where did he come up with that? And so I finally had to ask him. I said, where did you come up with that?
Well, where do you come up with difficult people, Dave? I mean, I thought everybody was just warm and fuzzy.
Well, there's been a few things that have come up this week that made me think about handling, difficult people in difficult situations, and I was helping with a couple of clients with some scenarios.
Yeah,
and it turns out that God has a funny way of putting things together. So today's reading in The Man Within. The Man Within. Daily devotional. It says, I'll have to read this. This is kind of cool. Difficult people, March 23rd. A man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Proverbs 18:24. One of the most difficult pressures I have faced in my career has been having to deal with difficult people. I used to believe that if only I could get away from these people, I would be happy. Have you ever thought that?
Oh, yes.
Just avoid them.
If I could just go to the moon.
Right. Get in my rocket ship. Anyway, this is, of course, was impossible. There were difficult people in every department and job I went to. So I concluded that I would never work again, or I could learn how to deal with them. Maybe opt to not work again. That'd be nice.
That'd be sweet.
If you could do that. Difficult people are miserable inside and want everyone else to be as miserable as they are. They are insecure and compensate by controlling others. Difficult people bring out the worst in all of us. They remind us of people we have not liked before. They tell lies, gossip, and like to manipulate others. Maybe you have to face a difficult person or persons every day on your job. Sometimes you may dread waking up in the morning to go to work because you know they're waiting for you. There are several ways to lighten the blow of having to work with difficult people. Don't take them personally.
What?
Yeah, it's don't take it personally. It's not about you.
What?
What they say is merely their opinion. Avoiding these people when possible is not a bad idea either. Try to be assertive and avoid being aggressive or reactive because they can always be more so. Finally, turn to the Lord, remembering that He is a master at dealing with difficult people. Lord, give me strength and patience to handle difficult relationships.
Yeah. And, you know, my first sponsor used to say, when I would tell him, I'm really having a difficult time with God, and he would say, well, can you imagine the kind of difficult time he's having with you?
Right.
So interesting thing in there about of maybe even avoid them when possible. There was a couple of comments on social media that said, if I can, I ignore them. Or I avoid them. Jennifer says, I don't deal with difficult people, period. And I had to kind of tongue-in-cheek that one because I thought, yeah, we all do. It's just how we do it, you know. Right. And so avoidance is one way. Sometimes you can't get away from them, though, right?
Right.
And sometimes avoiding them altogether, you may be cheating yourself. And I'll give you an example, and then I'll just let you go with this thing. I'll never forget driving to an AA meeting, getting to the parking lot, and before I parked, I saw this guy's car there. Now, this guy is one of these difficult people. And just a knucklehead, just, you know, no matter what you say, it's wrong. I mean, just one of these kind of guys is like, oh, really? So I see his car, and I think, I'm not putting up with that today. And I turned around, I didn't even park the car, and I went home. What I found out was that his car had broke down and it had been there for several days. He wasn't even in the meeting.
But look how it affected your life.
Look how it affected my life. And that was on me.
Right. You let it affect you.
I did. And how silly did I feel?
So what did you do since then?
Now when I see people, I mean, so-and-so's car at church, and I think, oh, boy, they're here. I just say, you know what? I'm glad they're here and not out there. And I don't let that keep me from doing what I want to do now.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is, well, you know, I was looking at the description of difficult people that they talked about in the
reading.
And, you know, I resemble that.
Sure, me too.
Most of it. I mean, not all of it.
Yeah.
But, so I can relate, right?
Right.
We tend to point out things in other people that we are experiencing or have experienced,
or we don't want to see in ourselves.
Yeah. Right. And so this particular topic has been something that's been very near and dear to my heart, and it's helped me to look at myself in a real perspective.
Yeah.
In my life, you know, I have issues with perfectionism and control still, even in recovery.
Imagine that.
Not as much, not even a tenth as much as I did before. But, you know, when I got into recovery, I was all in, you know, so in everything they told me to do, I did 100 times more.
Yeah.
You know, go to meetings for 90 days. I went to meetings every day for almost 2 years.
Yeah. I know. I understand that.
You know, I had to learn how to set those boundaries and say no sometimes because before.
Right.
You know, I would just say yes because I wanted everybody to think I was this great person and that I was, you know, all in.
Sure.
And then I would, you know, piss and moan about it because I had to do it.
Right.
And I didn't want to, or I had something other I had too many things going on, and it's like,
yeah.
So, a couple of situations happened to me early on. Well, no, not even early on. It's quite a few years. Let's see, 2008, 2009, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So maybe 8 years ago, I'm thinking 8 or 9 years ago, a couple situations happened. One involved one of my home groups, and it was a meeting that I started, and we ended up moving to another facility across the river in Wisconsin. And the meeting kind of was taking a weird turn. You know, you got some people in there that thought the personalities got involved and were trying to have their own agenda on how they thought people should interact and, you know, introduce themselves and everything else.
I hate it when that happens.
Right?
In Wisconsin.
Well, it started out in Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota. Okay.
But the problems came into play when we moved to Wisconsin. Anyway, there's some people that were part of the leadership and wanted people to do things their way. Details really aren't important. But I had a struggle with it, and I brought it up as a group. You know, I wanted to bring it up as group conscious.
Right.
Let's talk about this, and everybody. You know, it probably wasn't the best idea. 'Cause there's a lot of people there that were newer in recovery, and they were doing their own thing. Anyway, I put it out there. The thing is that what they were doing was causing other people to stumble.
Gotcha.
And one girl, in fact, relapsed and was in the hospital. For I think 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah,
that was her.
That was
part of her response
result
to
of how she was treated in a meeting.
My goodness.
And so I tried to, you know, stand up and be assertive and voice my concerns.
Sure.
And got kind of shot down. And so the Lord basically put on me that it's time for you to move on. You know, you did your good work. You got this thing going, and now it's time for somebody else to take over, and you're not responsible for whichever direction it goes.
Yeah.
And it's time. I got something else for you to do. And
was that hard?
It was a little difficult.
Yeah.
You know, my feelings got hurt a little bit
because it's your baby, right? Kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of how we are.
I had to remind myself that the reason why that I helped start that in the first place, because there wasn't a meeting on Friday night in our area, and but I had to look at also what was the whole purpose of that. I was there to help someone else, and so I did my part, and it was time for me to move on. And so that was a huge learning experience for me, and it helped me out through other things moving forward. And I don't have to be in control. It isn't always about me. Right. And sometimes I just got to let things go the way they're going to go. You know, don't interact with those type of people. Which, you know, some of these our listeners, you know, talked about. You know, try to avoid them, try to ignore them. I had to interact with a lot of these people in other situations in recovery. So I was pretty active in recovery community then. So it was a good learning experience, which, you know, kind of led me to another experience that I had at my church. And this is this helped me out probably even more than that did. I was involved with ministry and doing volunteer work, and, you know, my background is in the music business, and so I volunteered to do, you know, the sound and lights and video production and all that. And so we started getting some new volunteers and then helping, you know, teach and train them. And there was a particular person that was involved in the ministry, and you know, outgoing. You know, he was a very likable guy, and he was plugged into a lot of different areas and a lot of different people. You know, a lot of people liked him. And so I thought, well, this is going to be great. You know, bring another person. He has some experience. You know, help take some of the load off me. A little bit of my pride got in there because, it's like I almost felt like this is my area, right?
Right.
You know, because I'm there every week, for both services. And
Don't you know how much I put into this?
Right.
Yeah.
Don't you know who I am?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic. But the thing is that his humor was inappropriate most of the time. And he was very careful about, how he behaved and interacted. And even on some of the men's retreats, things, I heard stories about things that went on, goofing and fun-spirited things that I just thought wasn't really appropriate.
Inappropriate horseplay, maybe?
Yeah. And so, I mean, I steered clear from some of that. It just wasn't my thing. But anyway, this one particular day, the guy made some comments, sarcastic comments that about me pushing a family member of his down the stairs, and I thought it caught me off guard, and I was like don't push my down the stairs, and I was like,
right,
what? Because that's not even close to anything that I would ever do,
right?
And I just was like, what? I was shocked. I didn't even know how to respond. I wanted to just pick the guy up and throw him off the balcony.
Yeah.
But, being in recovery and, my new Christian walk, I was like, okay, let's just stop and think about this for a second, right? Is this me? Is this something that I'm doing, or,
right?
Is there some, and I was like, nope, this ain't nothing about me. And I told him, I says, I said, that's a totally inappropriate. Like, why would you say something like that? And in front of, this person, I mean, why would you even go there? I was just joking. I'm like, that's not funny. That's not even, I mean, how do you come up with some humor like that? That's, and so, I was very angry for a while.
Yeah.
But
I bet.
I had to process it. So I stepped back a little bit, and this guy would make comments, and he was basically trying to get a job at the church. And so he was insinuating his way into different things and like taking over. Like, that's my impression of what was going on. And I had to sit back and pray about it and think about it. And then finally, I looked at it, and I'm like, the interaction that I had at this meeting with these people, inappropriate, popped in my head too. And I was like, okay, so, what's going on? Is this about me, or is it about him? And so I prayed about it, and then I went and talked to a few people at church that also worked with him. And I found out that he had a lot of stuff going on in his life. And that's kind of how he deals with things, is this inappropriate humor.
Right.
And then, he's working on it. Because I had to think about, like, is it, what's going on with this person? Because I gotta deal with this. We work together.
Yeah.
We volunteer together, at least once a week, if not 3 times a week. And so I have to figure out a way to do that. And so I got to know a little bit more about the guy, and I talked with him and found out that he's got some stuff going on. And so then now I have a better understanding of why this is going on. And I set those boundaries, and I said, no, this kind of stuff isn't appropriate. And, came to some common ground. But then God basically was telling me again, it's time for you to move on. It's like, this isn't your job, right? This isn't this isn't what I have planned for you, right?
Right.
Your season was here. You've done good work. It's time for somebody else to come in and take over, basically.
Yeah.
And at first I struggled a little bit with that, but then I said, okay, let's do that. And so I kind of slowly backed off, didn't work as many weekends, and started getting involved with other things at my church and in recovery community. And then I had school started and just a lot of other things got involved. So it was a good learning experience for me to just be mindful of what other people are going through. You don't really know.
Right. We don't know. Most of the time we don't know the depth.
Right.
You know, we say things like, what's wrong with them? Well, there's something wrong with them. And that doesn't mean that they're evil or bad or something's wrong,
right.
especially if the behavior's out of character.
Right.
If it is out of character, I know, I have done this in the past. Somebody will do something and I just want to cut them off, right at the heels, man. And I'll have to stop and think, wait a minute, this is not them. So something must be up that has little to nothing to do with me.
Right.
Because they don't act like this normally. But then there's other people that's kind of their MO all the time, and it wears on you. And my wife used to tell me, I had this friend named Nathan, and she used to say, if you're going to remain his friend and remain in his life, you just may have to learn to tolerate his behavior. Otherwise, you need to cut ties, but you need to make a decision.
Right.
That's hard to do.
It is very hard to do. Through my recovery process, with God's help, I learned to set some of those boundaries and who to keep in my life and who to, kind of let go, but also pray for them. Mm-hmm. This particular person I'm talking about at church, I got to know them a little bit more. And most of the time, some of these have happened before, situations like this before. And if you just, put yourself out there and offer to help, if you're able to, sometimes that's all that they really want. They want to know, they want somebody to understand them. They want somebody to listen to them and not be like everyone else and, ignore them or, cast them off, because that's what,
right.
Maybe that's what they're used to. So try not to do the normal thing everyone's used to doing. So I find out, what's going on, especially if it's someone I have to deal with on a regular basis. It's made me a better person.
Some of the remarks that came through, you had read some of them, and you had said to me that some people will respond to, how do you deal with difficult people? What do you do? And some people will give us the answer that they think we want to hear, the right answer. I pray for them, and I do, and that may very well be true, but sometimes we need to look at ourselves and say, okay, what do I really do with difficult people? Not what should I do, but because you can't fix what you don't acknowledge, right? So you have to say, maybe I don't pray for him. Maybe I do cause a little gossip going on, or, I want to drag somebody else into my mix because this person over here is difficult, and this is how I vent about it. So I just challenge people that when it comes to difficult people, it's okay to say, maybe I don't deal with this well.
Right. Dean had some good responses that stood out. Silent prayer, right? Prayer for understanding, and ask questions, and what is the best way to reach compromise? Because sometimes,
that's good.
We, I know that I try to pray about things and try not to react,
right,
and then have to go back and apologize. But it's asking for help, whether it's prayer or your sponsor, your mentor, co-host. It's asking for guidance in a situation.
Yeah,
because the old 2 heads are better than one, or 6 heads are better than one. I mean,
right.
Group conscience, it's all that stuff. It is very helpful. The thing that I, and ignoring people in some situations that might be helpful. I had a client that struggled with this a little bit, and he said, I just don't have time for those people. If they're trying to trip me up or pull me off the journey that I'm on.
Right.
I don't have time for them. And I thought that was a little harsh, but then I get it. He explained to me, I was like, I'm focused on going in the right direction, and I don't need somebody pulling me off my square. And so I just tell them, hey, I'll pray with you or pray for you, but right now I can't co-sign this behavior. I gotta do something different. And they're still out there doing well, getting out and part of the recovery community. The other part that, when I look at avoidance and ignoring and just letting it go, don't deal with it, brings me back to why I had to change what I did, in the situations with the NA group and the coworker at church. The reason why I had to do something different, right? The only thing you have to change is everything.
Right.
Is because I found as I looked back at my history that there's certain personality types that keep showing up in my life.
Interesting.
And I just avoided them or, was negative or, lashed out, beat down, whatever it is. And so, again, I have to do something different this time. And so I don't want these people to keep cropping up in my life. It's very exhausting, mentally and physically.
Oh my goodness! Isn't
and
it?
so it's like, okay, now I got to do. That's why I had to do something different. I get to try to understand what that other person is going through,
right?
Because with more understanding, then I can make better informed choices, whether or not this is something that I need to change, or if I need to help shore someone else up and pray for them or pray with them. For help with whatever they're dealing with, rather than the old gossip and
dragging people in your circle and
or
personality is so
dragging them out into the back
40
lot.
Yeah.
And,
So what about so we have different settings when dealing with difficult people. Sometimes it's an employer. Sometimes it's an employee.
Right.
Sometimes it's that guy or gal at our 12-step support meeting. Sometimes it's, like you said, that guy at church. Sometimes it's somebody that's living in your home. Right. And depending on to what degree they're living in your home, are they a guest in your home? Are they a sibling? Are they a parent? Are they a child? I mean, there's so many different scenarios here. So let me pick one real quick. What about the person that lives in your home because they have nowhere else to go and you've opened up your home to them and they just don't want to submit to the rules of your house? How long do you allow that difficult person to live in your home?
Yeah, are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. Because many of us have done this for people over the years. Right. We've done it. I had a guy in AA tell me, you just need to take the mission sign off your door. And at the time, he was right. But that can be really tricky because you can fall into codependency really fast when you open up your heart and your home like that.
Well, I have boundaries that I've set that I don't do that.
Right.
But if I were to do that, it would be same as what I would do with my kids.
With your own kids, right?
When they become adults, it's like, even if they're adults, it's like there's still rules, right? If you live in my house, here's the rules, right? This is what I expect you to contribute. I expect you to get a job or be going to school, help around the house, et cetera, curfew. Let us know what's going on, right? So we aren't worried about you. If you say you're coming home at 10 and you don't come home at 10, you got to let us know what's going on so we don't call the police or go out and hunt you down, find out. So it's same rules apply. If if I were to invite somebody in, say I had a guest house and I wanted to rent that out to somebody or let someone stay in there while they're trying to get on their feet, same rules would apply. Because I know if I don't set those kind of rules, then oftentimes people take advantage of that. Maybe not intentionally at first, But if they find out that, it's okay to just kind of hang out,
they'll just kind of hang out,
and maybe they'll do that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my take on that. When you said people living in your own house, I was thinking about, even in I know my wife will be listening to this later. So, I mean, she's okay with me talking about our situation, but there's been times where I've been that difficult person, right? Or my wife has been that difficult person, or my kids have been that difficult person.
Yeah.
But I have to, I look at the whole scenario. It's like when we were separated for a while, and when we got back together, some of that old thought processes came up, and I had to show that I was a different person, that I wasn't going to react the same way, that I was going to do my part, and then even more than what I was used doing before, to kind of make up for the nonsense. And so I had to be a partner in that relationship and contribute equally. And so that, I mean, our marriage has gotten stronger and stronger every day. And so that's kind of how I look at it, is like if we're, whoever it is in your house, if they're not contributing, as part of the family unit or the household, then you need to have that discussion, and hopefully earlier than later that you set those boundaries.
Right.
I mean, even with my kids, after I got saved and sober, and and had some significant time under my belt, I can't come back into my house with my family now and demand that they go to church, and they stop listening to the secular music, and they stop watching these movies that maybe inappropriate. Or I mean, I raised my kids on heavy metal and horror movies. And so just because my life has changed, I can't all of a sudden come in and expect them to change everything.
Yeah, you can't go into their bedroom and say, okay, all the rock and roll posters are coming off the wall.
Right.
Burn your albums.
Here's some Striper posters to hang on your wall.
Yeah. They're looking at you going,
who are these bumblebees?
What?
Right?
Who are these?
The old school Striper.
Some people get that. Other people are going, huh?
Right. So but what happened is I was able to, by walking the walk, doing the right thing, the next right thing, whatever that is, encouraging them and getting involved in their lives, they saw the change in me.
Right.
And that it was there to stay. And everything, my relationship with my whole family has just totally changed. And so I try to look at every other situation that involves people in the same way. Is I like to treat them with respect, and I kind of expect the same thing, right?
Right,
and
right.
If someone says they're going to do something, kind of expect them to follow through with what they're going to say, unless there's outside intervention that comes in and interferes. But the same thing, like you say, with people coming in, setting those boundaries. Again, boundaries.
Right. Because we have a tendency to pull the next time thing. Well, next time. Okay, if you do that again, this will happen. Well, okay, we're going to show you grace because that's what Jesus does. So this time you get grace. You showed him grace last time. Yeah, but it can be, it's rough to kind of make those decisions. And not just for people that live in your home, but people in general, because we teach people how to treat us. Right? We really do. And a lot of times it comes back on, it's really our fault. If somebody is continually slapping me in I asked my sponsor one time, I said, hey, Doug, this guy keeps pushing my buttons. And he goes, then why are you sticking your buttons out there?
Right.
If somebody keeps slapping your face, why are you putting your face up against his face? I mean, sometimes it's us. We're more difficult than the difficult person that's causing difficulty.
Right. I try to always remember the all you need is changes everything. And so part of what you're talking about reminds me of, apologizing. So I don't know if anybody out there can relate to this about, I'm sorry, that'll never happen again. I'm sorry, that'll never happen again. right? I'm sorry, that'll never happen again.
Right.
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 And so it's like I don't say I'm sorry anymore. Right. I don't use that word as out of my vocabulary.
Yeah, I don't either.
I just do something different.
Well, that's the difference between apologizing and making amends, right?
Right.
Big difference.
That's right.
But it's tempting to say I'm sorry.
It's easy.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
And we may totally mean it in the moment.
Right.
But, and I don't know where I heard this before, but it's like, if you continue to say you're sorry, you're not really sorry. If you have to continually...
But I am.
If you were really sorry, you wouldn't do it anymore.
And then you wouldn't have to say you're sorry.
Right.
So an amends is an amendment. It means changing something.
Right.
Right?
It's kind of like repenting, right?
Right. Turn around, go the other way.
Right.
Yeah.
Sin no more.
Yeah. Wow.
Or at least try to.
Right. Right. I like this one comment that comes from Samuel. So the question is, what do you do to deal with difficult people? Samuel said, Al-anon. Big capital letters.
Yeah, that's one way. I did that as part of my meetings.
Right.
My daily meeting schedule is plugging in an Al-anon meeting, plugging in, dual recovery meeting, just because you wanted to get a variety. I wanted to look at different aspects from different angles. Al-anon was interesting. I went to some great meetings.
Yeah. My wife, the first Al-anon meeting she ever went to, it's like some AA meetings really aren't AA. Some Christian church fellowships really aren't following the Bible. Some Al-anon meetings really aren't Al-anon. So you have to shop around. It's okay to shop around. It's okay to find a home group. So the first one she went to was all about lose the loser. You got to lose the loser, man.
Wow.
And she was like, I'm coming here to try to find out how to work on myself and stay married to the loser. And I don't know what to do. And you're just telling me kick him to the curb. And she's like, that's not in my wheelhouse. That's not what I'm here for. And if she had stopped at that meeting and never had checked anything out, she wouldn't have learned so much that she had learned. So shop around. It's okay. It's okay to do that.
Right.
We shopped for the church that we were looking for, and we didn't find a perfect one, but we found one that fit well. My home group, my 12-step home group, I found one that fit well. Not everything they do and say do I like. There are some difficult people there, but thank God they're there.
They could probably say the same about you.
They probably could, but they wouldn't dare. No, I'm just kidding. And they do. Believe me, I hear it.
I have a radio show. Look out.
Yeah. So difficult people are here to stay, right, Dave? They really are.
Yeah. And so I know since I've learned how to deal with that personality type
right,
that keeps cropping up and difficult people, my life has gotten a whole lot better, a whole lot easier. I don't get irritated. I have peace. I have patience.
You can lay your head down on your pillow at night and not be thinking about that
every night.
Person.
Every night.
Yeah. It's not keeping you up.
That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. It just isn't worth it.
Just ask my wife, my head hits the pillow and like 30 seconds later I'm out.
Right. Right. And that's without any assistance.
Right.
Right. No Ambien Dave. No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So what about people that, so what about when you really are stuck in a situation that you can't get out of because you have to be a responsible person? Like if it's your boss, or if you're working at Home Depot and the guy just won't stop riding your case and you're doing everything right. How do you deal with that?
Well, there's no situation that can't be resolved or be gotten out of.
Right.
So this is my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Life's too short. If your job is that miserable, you need to go find
another job.
And the other thing that often comes up is we just take on these jobs because maybe it pays well, right?
Right.
Maybe the hours are really terrible. People you're dealing with are very terrible. And you really don't like the work all that much, but it pays really well. Well, to me, now for me, my quality of life is more important than money, because money will always come.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm doing the next right thing and I'm working on, what I need to do and helping people.
Sure.
It comes. Not always at the timing that I would like, but it always comes when it needs to come. And so being in recovery, I think we should find, something that we enjoy doing that's in our wheelhouse. We're gifted. I just talked with a guy today about this very thing. It's like, you may have to get out and, if you're coming out of treatment or something, you may have to get your recovery job, which may be working at McDonald's, let's say.
Sure.
Because the idea is maybe especially if you have a family, is to get out and do something where you're contributing, right? So also you're not, you don't fall into the boredom trap, right? And you're not trying to find the ideal job. So you're spending all this time, and maybe things don't happen as quickly as you need them to, right? And so then maybe you get discouraged. One thing leads to another, and you could possibly relapse. But if you just get in and do something, don't care what it is, to get started, and then while you're working, while you're helping out with the family and contributing, and being a good citizen and role model, you can focus on looking for that dream job where you can take your time. Sure. And it's not an urgent thing, and then find something that you enjoy doing, because heck, life's too short to be doing something that you're going to be miserable at every day. Right. Because then you just come home and, maybe take it out on your family or your dog.
Yeah.
Or cat.
And I found a lot of a squirrel. Yeah. A lot of times what'll happen is you'll have the perfect boss and all the employees and everybody gets along and it's wonderful, and it pays horrible, or it pays really, really well, but the people you're working with are horrible. It's like there's no in between, and so you get so fed up that it's almost like, well, I'm just going to get food stamps and collect welfare. I'm fed up with this. I could make more money on welfare, which, by the way, that's a justification for a lot of people, because they end up making more money.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that destroys your self-esteem, your self-confidence, especially guys. If we don't have a job to go to, if we don't have a mission, so to speak, we don't do well. If we're just sitting on the couch and fed up with life, we're just going to end up becoming the couch, right? And that's all part of dealing with difficult folks. But I think we can find a balance just about anywhere we are.
Well, and if you're in your gifting, you're doing something that's in your wheelhouse that you love to do,
right? Things
maybe not happen right away, but things will fit together. You talk about the dream job where you get paid good money and everything.
Everybody's great.
Everything's great. They're supported. I had that, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was at Minnesota Adult Teen Challenge, it was perfect. Money was good. Had a support system.
Yeah.
And everything in place that I needed. And if I didn't have something, all I had to do was reach out and ask for it, and it was right there.
Wow.
And so it doesn't happen too often. But also, I got to do my part too. I can't just,
sure,
yeah, sit around and collect a paycheck. If I ever get back to the point where I'm somewhere where I'm just collecting a paycheck, it's time for me to leave.
Gotcha. Yeah. I totally agree. And it's interesting because there are people out there that think that Take 12 Radio is making all sorts of money, and we're just, we're making money off recovery. And I've heard all the stories,
Really?
We get donations. We've got a couple of donors that if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be on the air, but nobody gets a paycheck here. And we do it because we love it. I can't imagine doing anything else in my home, because this is on our property. I really can't. And by the way, my boss, he's great. He's great. The CEO, what a guy, what a nice guy.
You know,
Right?
I think you should have informed me before we started this venture that I wasn't going to get paid. I thought we were getting paid.
Oh yeah, sorry.
All kidding aside, you know, I've told my wife this too, and if you know, I didn't need to have a house to live in and food to eat,
Right.
I would, you know, I'd do this for free. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd be a counselor for free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's my passion. And,
Absolutely.
And that's, you know, God's gifting to me.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a long time to figure that out, but yeah, it you know, gets me going.
So
every day.
let me ask you, because we're almost out of time, but I want to ask you, so as a certified alcohol and drug counselor, as somebody that works with difficult people, right? You must have days where you just want to, you know, go, I don't understand what's going on, right? There's got to be those chemtrail days, right? It's like,
Honestly, no.
No? Okay, so why
I
why
find-
don't you have those days?
Well, because you know, I work on my personal recovery, but the other thing is I look at every situation and every person that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment that they're in, right? And I also look at where I've been, and I try to look at like how would I want to be treated. And I find it challenging if I get somebody that says they're set in their ways and this.
Yeah.
I can challenge that. We can look at that. Or someone comes in and, you know, over spiritualizes everything, and
Right.
you know, they've been to 15 or 20 or 30 different treatment centers, and
They know it all.
you can teach the class, and it's like, you know, I could sit down and there's another challenge. It's like, okay, what's going on? What is going on underneath
Right.
that's keeping you from being successful outside of a facility? And so that's what I enjoy doing. I mean, it really gets me fired up. I mean, I could walk. Sometimes in the mornings I get up and I'm like, ugh, I'm tired. Maybe I didn't sleep very well or whatever. I stayed up too late last night watching Walking Dead or something. And but as soon as I get to work, man, I'm fired up.
The Walking Dead. Now, there's some difficult people right there.
Right? They don't always do what you want them to.
No.
But yeah, once I get there, I mean, I get fired up, and you know, it gets energizing.
So the opportunity to allow that to affect your emotional sobriety is there, but you don't allow it because you've grown in your recovery and in your walk with God to where that you look at it differently. I'm sure when you first started doing this kind of work, though, you must have had some days, right?
There were a couple of moments.
Yeah.
My biggest struggle early on was, you know, being a perfectionist and, you know, trying to get everything accomplished. Well, I had some really great teachers early on, some great
there you go.
mentors. And so my first supervisor, because my thing is like I don't like being behind. You know, I like being caught
up on everything. Yeah.
And organized. And my wife's going to laugh at this because I'm not always like that at home. But it's, you know, and he basically told me, he says, you know what? You come in, you work your 8 hours, and you go home.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow's another day. So finish whatever you got to do, finish it tomorrow. If you can't get something done, ask for help. We'll get somebody to help you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh. I mean, I still would try to, you know, do a little bit over, but they didn't allow us to take any of our work home.
Right.
And so I tried to, you know, I stuck to that. There was times where I worked 10 hours.
Because it's confidential stuff, right?
Right. But,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I guess technically I could log in from my home.
Right.
But they keep an eye on that too. And so, you know, and that was one of those things that I knew that, and I didn't want to like cause any problems. And I didn't really want to do any work outside of, because my life at that time was, I had a lot of involvement in the recovery community. and then it was the recovery community and my family. And so, really didn't, and then school. And so I didn't really have a whole lot of time to, which was great. So I learned to set those boundaries right away. What was the other part of that question?
Well, in the beginning of this work,
No, I remember something. So I was going to school, and we were in the middle of we were taking motivational interviewing was part of our
motivational interviewing.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was one of the classes in our senior project, and so I had this client come in. Different culture, background, nationality. He walked into my office and he saw me, and he basically shut down. It's like, he didn't say this, but I could tell
body language.
Like, you have nothing in common with me,
right?
And so I don't want to talk to you, right? I don't have nothing to say. I don't have nothing to share.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It was at least 3 weeks. We would meet, and it was the same thing. It would just, I have nothing. I don't want to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked my supervisor, I said, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
He says, well, just have him sit there and do homework. Go through his assignments with him or whatever. And I thought, well, I really don't want to do that because, I have a hard time. It just seemed like it was unethical to sit there and spend an hour watching the guy sitting in the corner in the chair doing his homework. I mean, so I said, okay, I'll think about that. But then I remembered the MI class, right? And so I said, I'm going to put this to practice. So I basically threw all the counseling stuff, the typical, stuff out the window, and I just basically sat down and got to know him. So I talked to him about what is interested in, what is his goals outside of treatment, what is his plans and dreams and all that stuff, and we started getting into this conversation. He talked about there was this movie theater, small little movie theater in the community that was closed down, and he wants to get some investors and open it back up and then do like the $5 movie.
Right.
And,
yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's great. And it was something we also had in common. So we were just, back and forth, and we just talked about, we talked about him and what his likes and dislikes and what he's been doing with his life, and, kind of all the professional counseling stuff. I was doing an intern. No, was I an intern? Yeah, I think I was for my second internship. And so I was like, wow, this works pretty good. So in this whole process, before we got into that part of it, he had put a request in to have a different counselor. And he requested to go over to Pete's group, which is fine, Mm-hmm. So we had that interaction, and everything went fine. And then he had actually switched groups. The great thing about that is a few months later, when he was transitioning back into the community, he came and, he shook my hand and he said, thank you.
Wow. And
he says, I really got a lot out of our sessions, and I apologize for, bailing on you. And
there you go.
I was like, no worries. No worries. And I had same thing happen with another young African-American kid in my group. It was just he had a really troubling childhood, and nobody took the time.
Right.
And I just took the time to get to know him, and put it out there and try to be his friend. He actually wrote me a letter he had to ended up going to prison.
Oh boy.
They wouldn't let him finish treatment, but he wrote me a letter and, was, thanking me, and, just went on and on about, how much he got out of the group, the little bit of time he was there, and, gave me a hug before he took off when he had to go. So, I pray about, pray for all those guys and make sure that they're still trying to make a go of it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great stuff. So, if we give difficult people a chance, Because a lot of where other people just kind of blow them off.
Right.
You know, we may be surprised. We are out of time. Next week we're going to talk about old playgrounds,
Old playgrounds,
old playmates, old playthings. We're gonna try to venture into the old stomping ground thing.
Yeah, facing challenges in recovery is probably a good topic.
Facing challenge. I'm writing this down.
And that includes like old friends and neighborhoods. And
yeah, that because they don't just go away.
Right. I mean, we talked a little about, about what it's like when you're coming out of treatment, all you have to change is everything.
Right.
You're looking at what is it, sponsor meetings, we've talked a little bit about all those things, difficult people. We want to talk about the ongoing day-to-day life experience and how to deal with just life on life's terms.
Yeah.
Because that you have to do every day for, moving forward.
So if you want to email us, if you've got a question or a comment, we really welcome it. You can email us at Take12Radio, that's TAKE, the number 12, radio at Comcast.net. If you'd like to subscribe on our YouTube channel, you can do that by going to Take12Radio.com and clicking on the YouTube icon. You can also subscribe for fun and for free, so you can download the shows and save them for later or use them to share with other people. On our Podomatic app. You have an iOS or an Android, we've got an app for that, no problem. Go to Take12Radio.com and you can sign up for all that. We'll never spam you. We'll just give you updates on the shows. Our closing song is by Joe Walsh, and it is entitled One Day at a Time.
Hey, did you ever have something that was your favorite thing to do in the whole world and you had to stop? My favorite thing was drinking alcohol. I only got drunk once for 20 years. And I had to stop. So this song is called One Day at a Time. It's a new song, and it's about relevant stuff.
Joe Walsh, One Day at a Time. Listening to our next broadcast, we want you to know that because of God's grace, you are entitled to what? To overcome.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.